Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I'd like to contribute to this debate on coal seam gas. Mr Acting Deputy President, how the years fly quickly. Now, I'll take you back to November 2011, when the Nationals released a blueprint on coal seam gas that outlines 5 key principles covering the environmental, economic and social impact of coal seam gas developments. And let me expand on those principles, Mr Acting Deputy President. 1. No coal seam gas development can damage aquifers or water quality. Condition number 1. Number 2. No development should occur in prime agricultural land. Number 3. No development should occur in close proximity to residential areas. Number 4. Landowners deserve a return, not just compensation for a resource on their land. And number 5. Real investment must be made back into the communities that generate our resource wealth. I'd like to expand on those points one by one, Mr Acting Deputy President. No coal seam gas development can damage aquifers or water quality. This is a vital issue. The underground water, and I refer to places like Liverpool Plains, is vital to water that ground, some of the best country, I won't say in Australia, in the world. There's only about 3% of that land on this planet Earth that needs to be protected. It's such a food bowl for the future generations to come. And what I'm about in this place, and probably the thing that I concentrate most of all as a senator, is that what do we do for future generations? I look back at the history. I look back at my family, my grandfather fighting a war in France in the First World War, putting his life on the line for the democracy we enjoy today. Likewise, my late father Reg is a rear gunner and Lancaster bomber. They developed our land, and it's up to us to protect our land. That's why I was only saying recently, the small farm my wife and I purchased out from Inverell, the first thing we did was took a bulldozer into that farm and improved the contour banks. The contour banks were getting flat. That faces serious soil erosion. We don't want our soil washed away, we want to protect it. Point number 2, no development should occur on prime agricultural land, and how true that is. And I refer again to the Liverpool Plains. That great country where I don't think there should be any sort of mining on those Liverpool Plains, that they should be protected from coal seam gas and coal mining, and I'll expand on that in a minute. No developments should occur in close proximity to residential areas. If people are there first, those people should be respected. If you build a house, for example, and all of a sudden the council comes along and puts a set of cattle yards alongside your sow yards, you were there first, you should be compensated. If you happen to buy a house near the cattle yards that have been there for many years, then be prepared for the noise and don't expect compensation. It's your decision. But people who are there first should be respected and have peace of life. The fourth point I make is that these royalties, because this gas used to be owned by the farmers until the state governments took it off them, the Labor governments in South Australia and New South Wales especially. They should be compensated for their resource or any interruptions, and not just a tuppence or a box of beer, a proper compensation, a proper royalty to them. And when those royalties flow into the states, they should be putting some of that money back into their communities, just like in Western Australia, the royalties for regions. But what's happened, Mr Acting Deputy President, is this has become a political issue. Far more politics involved than anything now. And I want to say this. I went and saw for myself, about 8 months ago, I went to Santos's works where they're doing at Narrabri. We went out to the wells where they drilled in the Pilliga Scrub, and Pilliga Scrub it is. I've been fortunate enough to spend all of my life basically in rural Australia. And I know I can look at land and tell you whether it's good land or it's real ordinary land, as we call backward store wallaby country. And when we went to the well out there in the Pilliga Scrub, it is pretty ordinary country. I don't think you'd feed a wether on 15 acres. You might even see the odd wallaroo, but I think they'll be battling for a feed. It is very ordinary country. And I went to Santos for one reason, Mr Acting Deputy President, to find out for myself, because we hear so much emotion, so many complaints, so many worries, etc. And I said, the group was a busload of us. We saw the geologist and the description of the underground land. I said, now you prove to me how you will not disrupt or pollute the artesian basement catchment here. You prove to me how you will not just interfere with underground aquifers. They took us all through the whole works. We said, what about all the salt? What are you going to do if all the salt you pull out? What about the dirty water? They took us to the water ponds they're building, 3 layers of sealant, so not a drop leaks through. We said, what are you going to do with the water? When it's filtrated, we'll be irrigating next door, probably grow a lucerne crop. So they took us right through the whole issue. The sad thing about it was, the gas they're producing now is flared. It is just burning away, 24/7, methane gas. You can't use it for the gas-fired power station at Narrabri, because under the laws, if that gas is being extracted through exploration before you're licensed, you're not allowed to use it for commercial use. Instead of just burning the gas 24/7, you could just hook it on in a matter of hours to the local gas-fired power station and provide electricity for some 300 houses. But no, it just burns away. That to me is crazy. New South Wales imports 95% of its gas, Mr Acting Deputy President. Where does it get the 5% it's got? Well, it's actually from the AGL site out at Camden, west of Sydney, where they've had, I think it's some, I'm not sure of the wells, I need to go there and have a look for myself, but they've been there for about 19 years providing that gas. Hadn't been a problem. Thank goodness it hasn't been a problem, and I hope they're doing it right. If there has been a problem, it's certainly something I haven't heard about. But I went on to, several months ago, went up to the Santos operation in Roma in Queensland. We actually spoke to the landowners. We saw what they were doing. We spoke to the businesses. We spoke to the mayor and deputy mayor and councillors. One happens to be in local government and owns a land where the coal seam gas is involved in his property. We went right through once again. Prove to us you're not damaging the water. That is, to me, such a huge issue. I found it very concerning what Senator Lazarus said about people with air quality control, bleeding nose, etc. That is really concerning. So I'm going to make my way to Chinchilla at some stage too, I can assure you that, Mr Acting Deputy President, to see for myself. Because I do have some doubts about that, because the coal seam gas at Roma and Narrabri, we didn't see any of that. It's the first time I've heard of that. What are the Environment Pollution Agencies doing? What are the state government doing? What are we doing? I mean, I haven't had that come to my office. I have not heard of that before. But if it is true, then that is very concerning, if it is true. Mr Acting Deputy President, Santos and AGL have assured me, in my office here, just not far from the chambers, you know where it is, that they will never go onto a farm if the landowner does not want them. And I've said to them on many occasions, will you honour that word? And they said, we certainly do. When I went to Narrabri, where they were working with the landowners, they were happy. They were getting payments. They were getting a good source of income. And I would imagine those in the Roma district would be the same. In fact, a source of income which would be very welcome given the drought they've experienced for several years there. And we kept saying to them, prove to us you're not damaging this, prove to us you're not damaging that, prove to us you're protecting the environment. And one of the reassuring things I did get from them was that they employ their own environmental experts, who to them, as they said in their very words, are far more severe than any of the government environmental experts. Because I said to them, you make one mess of this, you'll be wiped out, you'll be shut down. So I do have faith in Santos as a professional company, but I haven't visited other companies. I've heard bad things about other companies. AGL, I have faith in them as a professional company. So one thing I think is most important is this is not an industry for cowboys. This is an industry for professionals, with geologists, environmentalists and people who don't drop their cameras. Sorry for that, Mr Acting Deputy President. And so this is vital. But I come back to those issues about protecting things for the future. Now, it's become a very big political issue. I'll give you some examples. I want to go back to Liverpool plains, magnificent black soil plains with huge amounts of water underneath it. When I started this job in July 2008, Mr Acting Deputy President, January 2009 we went up and met with the Caruna Group. There was former Senator Barnaby Joyce, now Agricultural Minister, Senator Fiona Nash, Mark Colton MP, member I used to be a member for Parks, for getting the seat, and I went and met with the people. We took a bit of bark off, shed a bit of skin off. That's part of politics, you take that. But then, Mr Acting Deputy President, we shook hands, as adults should do, and we agreed to work together. We agreed to... No,
both sides of the road, Senator Williams, and you know that. You say one thing when you're out there and you don't...
Order.
we'll let the interjections... I'll get to you in a minute, Senator.
Not a time for
Senator Ryan, I'll get to you in a minute. We shook hands to agree to work together, but I'll tell you what, Senator Ryan, I'll take your interjection. What happened then is Mr Tim Duddy, representing the Caruna Coal Action Group, was down here only months later with the former Greens leader, Mr Bob Brown, putting wedge... Now, Senator Rhiannon would be very familiar with Mr Duddy because he writes letters prior to the election when you were elected to the papers. In here forming wedge motions. To me, it wasn't a shake hand of let's work together. It was a political stunt, which still goes on today. That's why I'm not even worried about your political stunts, because when you look at the Liverpool plains and the Shenhua coal mine, who has done the work? Why has it stopped today? It stopped today because member for New England...
Senator Williams, I'll remind you to direct your comments through the chair.
For sure. And what about the interjections? Section 197, Standing Order 197, is that still current?
I have asked the Senator to stop her interjections.
Thank you very much. So the politics continues, but let's get to the Shenhua mine on Liverpool Plains. Who has now brought it to a stop? The member for New England, Mr Barnaby Joyce, Minister for Agriculture, took Mr Hunt up there, and thank goodness for the scientific money that's available, the $150 million. I give credit to a former member for New England, Tony Windsor, for bringing that forward, supported by our side of government politics as well, of course. And so the politics plays on. The politics plays on. The issue, I mean, here's a great example. I've got to read this out. This is important to you, Mr Acting Deputy President. The coalition government in New South Wales, the Liberal National Government, that's been there just almost 4 years, has not licensed any coal seam gas developments. They are all existing licences from the previous Labor government. Now the politics goes on where Mr Draper, who was a former member, independent member for Tamworth, was a member when all these exploration licences were approved, has now come back and say, oh, we're going to fix this issue. It was the Australian Labor Party in government New South Wales, and I'm sure those opposite will be listening, that approved all these. It was the Australian Labor Party in New South Wales that took the $300 million from the Chinese company Shenhua to put in their coffers to agree to the exploration of the Shenhua mine. Of course, the government very much backed by who? The Greens. And now I'd say Senator Rhiannon, back in those days as a member of Legislative Council, was probably in the Parliament and working close alongside the Carr, Yemma, I can't remember all the premiers they had there at that stage, working alongside them when all these approvals actually went forward. And now we've got someone like Mr Draper, who was a member for Tamworth while all these approvals went forward, now screaming out saying this is a big issue, running for the seat of Tamworth, and he's going to solve the problem. Give us a break. This is crocodile tears at the best, when the very person who was a member was sitting there with his colleagues in the Labor Party and the Greens and approved all these very issues. Now, I'll get back to what we can do at a federal level, Mr Acting Deputy President. Under the Constitution, we can't control the land, but we have the Water Act, the EPBC Act, brought in by this side of the Parliament many years ago, Senator Robert Hill. And that's why Environment Minister Greg Hunt has been up there at the Liverpool Plains very, very recently and well received, I believe. And what's happened now? It's been put on ice so the scientists can go in there and get the facts and see what's going on. There's one issue I want to add when we talk about all this mining on prime agricultural land. The one thing I was informed by Senator Heffernan, is coal dust. Now, when coal mines developed in the Hunter Valley, I remember being told by my colleague Senator Heffernan how the coal mining industry bought the neighbouring farms, and there was a dairy farm. There was a dairy farm next door, and the coal mining company said, oh, you can stay on your farm, we've bought it, but you can stay there, continue your business. It was only a matter of time, and the milk was contaminated in those dairy cows from the coal dust, which is another problem, which is another reason why I don't agree with the coal mine on Liverpool Plains or coal seam gas there, because next thing, the dust, and as I said to the Northern Daily Leader yesterday, this is a real issue we don't hear much about, the coal dust from open mine settling on the food, whatever crop they be, sorghum, corn, wheat, barley, peas, you name it, on the food that needs to be consumed in a safe and hygienic and clean manner that we are so proud of producing in this country. So there's a problem in itself, and that country should be totally left alone. But as I said, the politics comes into this all the time, and even though gas is... a lady came up to me at Aquip and said, "Oh, you can't have any of this coal seam gas. It is terrible." I said, "Have you got a barbecue?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Where's the gas come from? That CH4, the methane for the powers your barbecue. If you're going to have coal seam gas, it must be done correctly. It can't be raced into. You can't have cowboy companies doing it. It must be done professional." And as I said, the 5% of New South Wales gas supply that's been there for many years now seems to be working well. I haven't visited the area, but I've visited Santos at Narrabri and Roma, and it's good to talk to the landowners. In stark contradiction of what Senator Lazarus was saying, Mr Acting Deputy President, where the landowners seem to just say, no problems, good company, work well, up front, explain everything. Yeah, we're getting some good royalties, and it's not interfering with our farming. This is what the farmers are telling me when I speak to them face to face, not what I'm reading in the paper from some biased report from whoever may have put it together. So we need energy, we know that. We know we have a lot of coal. We know that we can use that gas if done properly. But if we don't do it properly, we're going to make a mess of our environment for future generations, and that's a big key I've said all along. Tread slowly, tread cautiously. Yes, if we've got good supplies of energy, great to have it in Australia instead of importing 91% of the fuel we import now is from overseas. Petrol, aeroplane fuel and diesel, 91% is imported directly here. So we need a reliance on our own clean energy, but not at the risk of destroying the environment for future generations to come, because our predecessors have done their bit to grow our country, look after our country. Sure, we made some errors on the farm. Sure, we cleared too many trees in the Mallee country. Sure, there's too much wind erosion. Now, with better practices of farming like direct drilling, etc., leaving the stubbles on the soil, we're doing it much better. And that is the basis of this whole argument, that you need to do it properly, do not rush into it, see that the state government does its job, see that the federal government does it through the limited powers we have in this place when it comes to mining, do our job properly. And I have confidence that Environment Minister Mr Hunt will do exactly that in relation to many of these issues and protect it for the future. Or there will be a very blunt, a very dark, a very damaged future for those in this country, especially our farmers, who have to grow so much food in the years to come to feed a growing world population. And our reputation for food in this country is second to none. We have great farmers who do a great job and produce great food. We need to keep that and preserve it for future generations.